So it's a mutual exchange between what we give and receive. For example, that's giving presents. So you kind of see the moving back and forward between A and B. The funny thing is about this works in all human societies, because if you have a surplus, if you have too much food, for example, well, you can give out some of that food, but you would only give it out if you know you're going to get something in return. So all societies in the entire world has this principle. This is part of the culture. Maybe because societies where you don't have this reciprocity principle, it's difficult to survive, because sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. But if you don't share things when you're up, well, and you probably wouldn't do it if you didn't get something in return, well, it's difficult to maintain a society, to maintain a cohesion group. So let's look at how we can apply this in influence theory. So again, as you know, all psychological studies always have some kind of cover story. And this cover story, they invited people in to say, well, it's about art appreciation, you have to rate some paintings. And there were actually 4 conditions, but there are 2 conditions where just before the experiment started, the experiment assistant called Joe, he came back with a Coke for the participant and said, well, I asked the experimenter if I could get a Coke myself, and then he said it was okay, so I bought one for you as well. And this is one condition. He was helpful. He made a favor for this participant. Or in the other condition, he just didn't do anything. And then there were 2 kind of conditions. Either Joe was very unpleasant, or that Joe was very pleasant. He was likable or not likable. And when the study was over and the experimenter went out of the room again, well, Joe kind of asked, well, I'm actually selling these raffle tickets. They are 25 cents a piece. Would you like to buy some? What happened? Well, this is the original study. As you'll see, she's very pleasant. And he doesn't do a favor. People on average buy 1 raffle ticket. But if he actually does a favor, they buy almost twice as many. They almost buy 2 each. If he's unpleasant, people buy less tickets, of course. But the funny thing is, it's the same principle. If he didn't do a favor, they buy 0.8 raffle tickets. But if he actually does them a favor, they buy 1.6 tickets on average. The funny thing is, the Coke, well, if you look into, I think it's 1971, the Coke price in 1971 was around 15 cents, 20 cents if you bought it in a restaurant. So kind of high. But the raffling tickets were 25 cents. And the average spend was 43 cents. That is a lot higher than the price of the Coke. So just doing the favor in itself made people spend more money, even though it wasn't the same level of money you used. So you kind of see people kind of felt they owed Joe something, this research assistant. This is very interesting. There are lots of applications. If you see people putting mints with the bill on restaurants, well, it actually shows out, if you research into that people give higher tips if you add mints. Just a funny thing, especially if it seems that you do something special for people. For example, well, I saw you're having 3 kids with you, so I kind of gave you 8 mints. That's really a hitter. That make it, well, he gave me 8 mints for my kids. Great. And then you actually tip a lot higher, a lot more worth than the mints are. The same goes with if you add flowers, a book, or pens, which you give people, well, it leads to higher donations. Supermarket trials, we know if you get something for free, people feel obligated, especially if it tastes a lot. Maybe not students, they kind of do not feel this, but a lot of other people do feel this obligation. I have to buy something, I got something. So, what does it do? Just to make sure you understand this. The social rule of reciprocity invokes this social obligation. if it's done correctly. That is, I now feel I owe you something. A person is expected to cooperate with individuals who do something for that person first and then later ask for a favor in return. With one very, very large danger sign hanging here. That is, if people can see you're just doing something for them because you want to use their favor. So if it's uncovered, you're just doing something because you want something in return, then it works counterproductive. So let's look into stuff. Let's look into the exercise from last time. And now you will see why it's very important to understand how this works. So we know last time, this is what you did last time, or 2 times ago. We have to write a text on this hanger, making people reuse more towels. And of course this is good. It's environmentally friendly, it's economic, it's a quick win for the hotel. So what could you do? Well, you could appeal to noble motives, just like Dale Carnegie would do. You could say future generations, helping, donating around environmental organizations. You could also do a non-noble motive. You could just say, help the hotel. That's not a noble motive, right? So according to Dale Carnegie, this would work better if you said the environment or future generations or like any kind of higher valued motive. So what happens if you just say, help save the environment? Well, as you know, around 30% will actually reuse a towel. If you say, well, help save resources for future generations, that's also a higher motive. That's around 30%, exactly the same. Future generations deserve our concern. Yes, but apparently not that much. What if you say, help the hotel save energy? The hotel management is concerned about the rising expenses to the hotel of energy, labor, and other resources. Well, we just have rising costs. Please help us. Well, guests really don't care. So only around 16% actually reuse a towel. But then, what if we actually say, if you partner up with us, and if you reuse a towel, we'll donate a percentage of the energy saved to some charity organization. Is that reciprocity? Some people who did not have this class would expect that it is, but it isn't. And as you'll see, you only have the same amount, around 30%, as with the other noble motives. But this is not using the principle of reciprocity. Why? Because you don't owe them anything yet. They didn't give you anything. They're telling us, well, we will give something if you give something. That's not reciprocity. If you have reciprocity, you give something first. So there's no social obligation. So what happens if we add social obligation? Well, we could say this, you see now the standard requests and the corporation, they say, we will donate if you help us. But what really works is we would say, we already donated something. We know that you're such a good person. We already donated money to a charity organization. We hope that you will reuse towels. So actually say, we're doing our part for the environment. Can we count on you? So, because we are committed to preserving the environment, we have made a financial contribution to a non-profit environmental protection agency on behalf of the hotel and behalf of the guest. That is you. On behalf of you, we already donated. If you would like to help us in recovering the expense, well, we already paid. While conserving natural resources, please use your towels during your stay. Well, we actually get a rise on 15%, almost 50% relative rise. 15% more use, or 15% absolute, reuse the towels instead. So this is the way you use the reciprocity principles.